We've arrived here at our Changemakers webinar for this Thursday. To start us off, I will say a small prayer and then we'll get into our kōrero. Nō reira ki ai noi tata. E honore e kōrero ki te atua mo tāna maungaro o ki runga i te whenua, e whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Hei mua koe i a mātou e hua, hei tohi i o mātou mahi katoa. Koe anō hoki hei whakakaha i a mātou, kia whai kōrero ai mātou rote ai mahi katoa. He mea tīmata, he mea mahi, he mea whakaoti roto i a koe. Kia whiwhi ai mātou i te oranga tonutanga. Tā te mea i atu whaitea nei mātou i tēnei rā. Kōrero ki tō ingoa tapu. Āmini. Āmini. Kia ora tātou. We're just going to get straight into it. Today, our Changemakers presentation is from the Betterman team. And speaking on behalf of the Betterman team is Jed Robinson. I'm going to allow Jed to introduce himself and have a short talk, kōrero on him, his experiences, his life, and how he has turned that into what we have in front of us. So, Jed, the floor is yours, brother.
Kia ora, Hane. Thanks for having me, Ryan. So, yeah, welcome. We're the Betterman team. Todd Astle, who's part of the group, is actually in this group as well, listening, so he might chime in at some stage. But as you can see, we're the Bettermen. We're all about betterment, yarns, and competition, and how we bring men into the room using that framework. I'll just do my pepeha to start. So, Hayley, if you can go to the next slide, please. So, ko tokomaru te waka, ko taranaki te monga, ko motuai ki te awa, ko te ati awa te iwi, ko te awhina te marae, ko Shanti Hoa Rangatira, ko Mecca, Ali, Vincent, and Hazel Aku Tamariki, ko Jiraho. So, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm originally born in Wellington, grew up there, played Super Rugby for the Hurricanes, went on a bit of a journey from there and played for the Melbourne Rebels, who are not here anymore, across back to the Highlanders, back to New Zealand, and then finished up with the Crusaders. So I've been retired for 10 years now, or close to 10 years. And in that journey after finishing up rugby, met some good people along the way, which is one of Toddy in the room here. And we had a big discussion about what we learned from our careers and how we learned awesome tips and tricks around how to be the best on the field, but then actually realizing that a lot of these tools and strategies help people to be their best in their normal lives. So that's kind of a real quick version on how we got there. I'll let Todd, if we go to Todd for a second, he might just want to introduce himself, if that's okay, Haley.
Come on.
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. And Jed and I, over the last 2.5 years, have really grown this Betterman charity and space. But yeah, before that, I was a professional cricket player for 18 years. And so, again, echoing Jed, you have such a high sort of performance environment, but it's also really high well-being. So you have all your mates, you know, you go to the gym together, you go out for dinners, it's all the partners. And so the hard thing was when I finished professional cricket was what's sort of next, and that's where Betterman is that next team. And so we bring people along for the ride, and we have all those intentional sort of get-togethers, events, workshops, and loving having that group of other people now and building those communities and supporting them, because that's what I loved in sport. And so that's kind of our secret sauce. So yeah, that's me now. Cricket was the past life, and now it's cool doing it with Jed, but also my older brother Ryan, who's more the digital marketing, and we all have our strengths, which is great.
Cool. Thanks, Toddy. Hayley, can you go to the next slide? That alludes to the next slide. So this is the team behind Betterman. So me and Todd have already introduced ourselves, and then there's Ryan there. It's funny enough, Ryan is called the shit Astle, so he used to play cricket too. So Todd was the one that was always better. So everyone, his nickname was shit Astle, which is a bit of a laugh. So he kind of brings that into everything, but he's not the shit Astle on this. So he's the behind us doing a heap of work, all our comms and marketing. Yeah, he's pretty important to us. We want to get him out front, so we want to get him out talking, and we're in the journey of him learning that as well. So that's the team behind us. Hayley, if you go to the next slide, just so where we fit, guys. So what me and Todd have alluded to there is there's kind of 3 parts that we've tried to bring together. So the best parts of team sports, the bits that we learned that made us and helped us to be our best, how that kind of intersects with mental health and well-being. And then it's really challenging the norms around what is it to be a man and that masculinity piece within that, and we're trying to hit smack bang in the middle of all that with our engaging events. When me and Todd do our talks or our events or anything, workshops, it's all aligned to how we hit in the middle of these three. Hayley, if you go to the next slide. So we've alluded to it too. The vision for us simply is to successfully grow a community of better men who have improved themselves and positively impacted the lives of others. So when we say that, as we all know, is if we're working on ourselves first to be the best versions of ourselves, that directly impacts the key relationships in our lives. So when we run events in particular, we're always trying to hit different areas and key relationships. So it may be one for yourself. It may be one where we have a better half night where it's your significant other. How do we support them and that relationship between you? We're looking to do some daddy-daughter days and father-son days, and just hit those different key relationships in you and help enhance those. But really, firstly, focusing on how you can be better as a man yourself. Hayley, if you, the next slide. So we love an acronym. You'll find that out pretty quickly here. We've got a lot of acronyms within us. So this is Ryan's kind of comms and how he put it together. So whenever we run an event or a workshop, this is the bones of how we're going to create it to make it fun. So it's called BYC. So I don't know if there's many cricketers in the room. If you are, backyard cricket, but it's a play on that, to betterment, yarns, and competition. Competition can also be connection. So what we're trying to do is we realize, particularly for men, to get them in the room, if you're saying you're going to be doing a wellbeing seminar or come along and have a wellbeing chat, that is the worst comms you can ever give a group of middle-aged men to come along. So what we do is we put it round saying, come and have some fun, some competition. It might be a quiz night or even the better half date night. We've got some fun and engagement, and then we layer in some key yarns and betterment along that journey. So we're kind of hiding it into the night, and then what we hope they walk away from that night going, actually, that was an awesomely fun night, but I've also learned some key strategies and tools to help myself be better. And they didn't really expect that, but then they've come away with that along the way. So it's, we had our first quiz night that we did. We had we didn't know it, there was a clinical psychologist in the room, and she was part of one of the quiz teams, female, and she messaged at the end and sent us a bit of an email afterwards saying, I've never seen wellbeing done like that in my life. It was part stag do, part therapy session. And we cracked up because it's exactly what we were trying to achieve on the night. So if we've got a clin psych saying that's how you've done it, that's exactly what we were trying to get out of it. So that was really kind of fired us up to go, actually, we're on the right path here. If we go into the next slide too, please, Hayley. So here's our next acronym. So as you guys know, with Te Whare Tapawha or Whānau Whare, we use this is an American-based model in positive psychology called the PERMA-V model. So to go alongside when we're developing our sessions, we are trying to find out which part of this framework, or when we do something, how we're layering in this framework into our talks. So the PERMA-V model, or the PERMA model, has been around for about 25 years. It was around helping people flourish and to be their best, to like what we did in our sports. And there's kind of 5 key areas with the PERMA. So the positive emotion is the fun and the games and the humor that we put into everything we do. But we also teach them how positive emotions is a performance enhancer in terms of their brain being at their best when they're in the best space. How do they use humor and whatever it does that makes them fire up and enjoy life? How do we get more of that in their lives? The next one is engagement, and it's around being fully engaged or in your flow state. So you're doing something that's meaningful to you, and it kind of crosses off with the meaning one there. You have meaning and passion, so you're engaged in it, you love it, you're using your values within what you're doing. And then the big one is the middle one, which is the relationships, as we know. So the biggest predictor of how we will go in our lives is the quality connections and relationships we have. Hence, when we do our events, it's always about hitting those key relationships, but we're also teaching them strategies around how they can have a better relationship in a positive way. And then the last two around the achievement is just got effectively having goals or things that you're trying to get better towards. And once you start achieving those, you feel better because you're accomplishing stuff. The vitality one is the one that we all know about in terms of mental health and well-being. So it's the sleep, eat, move. So do we sleep well? Are we eating well? And are we moving well? So you put that together. That's the framework. And we're trying to hit different parts of that as we go. Toddy, do you want to add anything to that? No, you're happy? Cool. Can you go to the next slide, please, Hayley? So here's our next acronym. So this year, we collaborated with Crusade with Heart, which is the Crusaders charity, and the Wellbeing Works, who are good friends of ours, mine and Toddy's. So together we developed a workshop for high school students in year 13. And we were lucky enough to get some funding through the Data Foundation down here in Christchurch. And what we did is we went into 6 schools and we delivered to the year 13s around the REF toolkit, so relationships, emotional shifters, and flexible mindset, which if you go back to the PERMA model, you can see that kind of aligning into it. I would be the REF, so I'd take my whistle in, and it's about being your own REF and teaching them strategies around these 3 key areas. And we were lucky enough to have 2 or 3 Crusaders come with us each session. And a good example is we talked about who's your go-to person or your very important person. When you need them, do you have them? Who are they? Why are they important to you? And then we got the Crusaders to share who those important people were for them. What we know is, and particularly within sporting organizations, these people on the screen, as you can see, are seen as superhuman, that they don't have their own well-being issues or they aren't struggling in life, which we know is actually, as me and Todd can allude to, is totally the opposite. They just have learned strategies and tools to help support them in those environments. So it's kind of trying to shine a light on actually saying everyone needs this. This is important to who we are. And then sharing that, if we talk about kind of culture change and shift, when they're being open and vulnerable, especially people that they see are really high up, it's a really cool way of saying actually we can do this and this is important to us. So we did that to about 1,000 kids, 1,000 students over 6 schools, and it was awesome. We did some surveying and we got an 8.2 out of 10, which I'll take any day of the week for just how they liked it. Going back to that BYC model, the Betterment yarns and competition, we laid in lots of competition and fun and engagement, which kept them kind of on task and enjoying it. So yeah, overall it was a really big success. We're hoping with a bit more funding next year that we'll be able to do double what we did this year. So we got into 6 schools. We're hoping to get to 10 if we can get the funding and back in. Hayley, next slide there. So the other, outside of the workshops, the other part that we've set up is around our local community, and it's called 610 Betterman. So every Friday at 6:10 a.m. at a Horsell Rugby League Club just down the road from me and Toddy, we have an open workout session. Now, again, we've got the BYC in there. So we've gone to the vitality piece around having some movement. We open up with a bit of a game and we have a check-in, bit of a wider check-in, and then we pose a question for the day. So we've got a bunch of cards with some questions. They pair up, have a couple minutes to chat about that question. I think the last question we had was, how did your parents kind of influence you, or the values that they had? How does that influence your life? So we can get quite deep quickly, have a couple of minutes chat about that, and then we have a 20 to 25 minute workout, kind of sign off the day, high five, and then we come back. So we have about 15 men coming each week to that. It's open and free. We've got on the group, there's probably about 40 people, and we've got different group of that 40 coming each time, and we're hoping to build that over kind of 2026 and see where that takes us.
Nice.
That's all my slides. That's who we are. So thanks for listening for that time, and I hope Connie's got some questions for us.
Thank you, Jed. Your father's story is really, really inspiring, especially because one of the big mahi that we've been doing over the last couple of months is trying to build on the capacity for the network to affect this positive change in whatever kind of rohe or region or wherever you are. And so probably one of the bigger things and one of the bigger partai that we like to talk about on these webinars is about the engineering of some of what kind of aside from the models that you already have spoken about, what are some of the things that make your kaupapa different or make your kaupapa thrive in Christchurch?
I mean, we're trying to make it thrive is probably the first question. But I mean, I think there's two parts to it. Is there's not enough men leading this communication or this kind of work. And we noticed very early there was a lot of like women really get behind this and wanting their men to do it. And me and Todd are sitting here going, well, actually, we can lead this. We can be the men showing the way on how to do this. We're still trying to be better men and leading it ourselves.
Yep.
And we're on that journey too. But if we can be open and vulnerable and honest and leading this, then people want to get on that kaupapa and join what we're doing. So that's probably what I would say around us thriving, is just leading it by example about how to be the best men we can be and teaching that along the way. Toddy, would you add anything to that?
No, I'd echo that. I would just say where we are in Hallsville, you know, Jed, Ryan and I are all in the same little community. All our kids go to the same school. So Hallsville is the largest and fastest growing suburb in New Zealand. So it's got a huge catchment. So that's where we want to kind of showcase it and role model it. And then if that's the way that we can then, I guess, showcase it to others around the country, that's where we're trying to not overpromise. You know, we want to always have a quality, authentic, fun event, right? And so whilst it's not our all-in day-to-days yet, when we do it, we still want to make it, you know, worthwhile and quality, to know that future-proofing it in time, we'd love to go all in and really make even more of an impact.
Nice. So you mentioned that your area is the largest or fastest growing area in New Zealand. And so it seems like this is the epitome of the upstream kind of way of thinking. So if I set this dam in place now, the water that runs down my river runs clean the entire way, right? And so, as we know, as people who live here in Aotearoa, shifts happen. And so how does the Betterman team measure when, or recognize when, those shifts are happening within areas, within cities, within countries, as like Aotearoa?
That's something that we are looking at the moment, that sort of social impact and how you measure those things, because we've done the schools and we've done some surveys, and that's where we've got to prove and showcase those things to kind of get more funding, as we know. And we're meeting with, you actually mentioned the word upstream. We're meeting with Mitch Shaw, who started up Upstream charity here in Christchurch, and they do a lot of that social reporting and impact. So we are catching up with him on Friday and just looking at ways that we can do that for our, regular community events, and not only the schools, right? It's trying to showcase that and see what impact we're having, so then you can, measure it, because that's the hard thing. If you can't measure it, then it's hard to get that sort of support and funding behind it.
From a non-funding point of view around measuring it, what I've seen since I've stepped into this space more is, particularly because from the coaching lens I have with a couple of schools I work with in the first 15 capacity, that I had 2 or 3 speak up to me around how they were feeling, which would have never happened in the past. And I kind of asked, what made you talk to me? And they said, well, we see what you're doing, and we see that you're part of supporting people with well-being. So when you go back to the leading part, because I'm out there leading it and showing that it's okay, they say it's okay to come and talk to me, which is quite a privilege, right? So I can't put that on a piece of paper, but I can say that I've seen some shifts in how people and how those particularly young men are living, that they're struggling. Some of them are struggling, and they're willing to come and talk about it, which is awesome.
Cool. I had a really good question just to lead on. Anyway, I'm moving away. So what are some of the other kaupapa or events that are in your very near future? And I would like to remind, I keep forgetting to do this at the beginning of the webinar. If people that are on the webinar have any part-time, please add them to the chat, and we'll have like a little Q&A session in about 20 minutes time. we are all a part of the Changemakers program. Changemakers being a funding stream from MSD and and all of that important stuff. But so when I came into this mahi, one of the things I saw was there wasn't enough connection between people who were a part of the Changemakers program. And so my job is to be the PO, to be the connector of this program. What are some ways that some of our other Christchurch Changemakers can be a part of kaupapa like that, of kaupapa from Betterman?
Well, I suppose it's just us having first of all, just having a catch up with them and building that connection about what they're doing and where we are. We've probably stayed, we've collaborated with a few charities like Crusaders with Heart that are inside our wheelhouse. But we probably haven't, that's on us a little bit to go and have those conversations and build those connections and say, look, this is what we're coming up. How do we collaborate? What does it look like? So that's probably from my end. Toddy, would you have anything to add to that?
I think, Ryan's just started work at Chumley Kids Centre, right? So he works with kids in respite care, and we've partnered up with Crusade with Heart. Jed, you're often talking to other charities, your sisters in that Auckland City mission. So there's lots of different people in different roles. And like I was saying, I reached out to Mitch Shaw, who I play cricket with at Upstream. So we're kind of making all these connections and building it up. And I think that's Hui coming up in Christchurch. We'll just build on what people are doing and where and how it all fits in. It's that patchwork quilt, you know what I mean? Sort of attack to how we do things here. Yeah. So that's where I think we came up to the Hui in Wellington a couple of years ago, and it was so powerful, and you could sort of just see the special connections in the room. And that's where I think we've got to be really intentional and keep doing those things, because the more you do it, the more you have that awareness. And yeah, that's something I think that we can keep doing, and just collaborating, right? Throwing ideas out there and seeing how we can support others, and then I'm sure that'll be the same back towards us.
Yeah, Hono, one thing I would say is, like, we are good at getting men in the room. Yeah. So, I mean, and I know we've got different demographics and cultures, and that can be changing for different people, but we're good at communicating well to get men in the room, and that's half the battle.
Yeah.
So if we can get them, and that's where I think we can help a lot of others around some of the, how we communicate, how we put on the events, how we make it look fun and engaging, so people want to those men want to step through the door. Yeah, so that's where I think our probably secret sources and where we can help.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to pivot away from that kōrero completely. I've held on to the whakaaro that I would eventually get to have this conversation with the Betterman team. And because my entire life and most of my relations here in Suranga, rugby has been a pretty critical part of our lives. But we've lived and grown up with people who represent what it was to be a rugby player. And when I say what it was, it's the quiet, the stoic, the never say anything, never step out of line. But secretly they were hurting. And then when they would go home, they would perpetuate said hurt. And so I want us to have a think about what culture changes, especially in our male-dominated spaces like professional sports. What does that mean for you in practice? And can you talk about some of the tools or some of the frameworks that you've used to move away from that kind of thinking?
So, I mean, I'll probably take this one in the rugby head here, Todd. So, yeah, and we spoke a little bit about this, Hone, before we jumped on. It's a really hard space. Any combat sport or warrior sport, as we know, we are taught that we have to be warriors on that field. So we are going to war to be, and this is the case, you have to be something, you have to become something when you cross that line, that you are bigger than yourself, that you can handle this. But then when we cross back off that line, for a long time, we thought we had to take that with us. So when we talk about cultural change and what we're seeing is, and I alluded to it before with those year 13, you know, with the St. Thomas boys that I'm supporting, is the ways that I'm trying to help them is, like, there's the external scoreboard, which is how you won those games, you smashed people, you got all the chahus, you did really well. But the internal scoreboards are what are your values? Who are you? Are you living to those values on this journey? Because as we all know, the game will go, that will be a time where you won't play that anymore. But are you being the person and living to those values that you want to live by? So, and Artie Severe is probably the best example in New Zealand at the moment as an All Black who lives that story the best. He is a warrior on the field, but he does it respectfully. He comes off the field. He is talking about how he's there to impact people. He's playing with courage. He's talking about his values, how he's supporting his people. Like that is what a true, man is. That is what masculinity is. That is what having positive masculinity is. So I'm really trying to shine it. So I show clips of Artie, talk about how he's speaking. What do you see? Is this internal scoreboard or external scoreboard? How do you see him living his life? So for me, it's just actually giving these kids an awareness that, yes, you need to be a warrior when you cross that line, but it's okay to be struggle and be open and vulnerable and curious and have those questions and trying to tease what your values are and who do you want to live by outside of that field. That only works if I live that myself and I lead that myself in front of them. So that's the key for me. I've got to lead that, and then they see not someone in power, but someone older than them as a coach leading them alongside people like Artie. Then I think there is shifts. There is good shifts.
Nice.
Yep.
So I wonder, I moving away from the kind of warrior sports and over to you, Todd. So what were your experiences within professional cricket over the 18 years, if I remember correctly? But I'm not to say that it was less of a warrior sport, but I'm assuming that there were some similar kind of experiences that you had that have contributed to your mahi here at Betterman.
Absolutely. In cricket, you don't want to appear weak, so you don't want to admit to any weaknesses, and so it is that sort of stoic and she'll be right. And often in cricket, it's a very facetious. You take the piss out of each other, and so I guess I had a real shift after losing a really close friend in the February 2011 earthquake, and for me, the next sort of 6 to 12 months was really difficult. You're so caught up in thinking what might happen, what's happened in the past, and I sought out the help of a mental skills coach. And often those types of people are for the high elite levels, and I'd had experiences with a couple, but I wanted to just have someone externally that I could just go and just spew out some things to and work through things. And I just found that really therapeutic and helpful. And I guess that's probably, a message there around finding your people, find the person that you can connect and resonate with. And now, 10, 15 years on, I'm a mental skills coach and I have my own business and I work with athletes. And so, it is using that adversity to your advantage and trying to support others. And that's where I think I became a lot more vulnerable and open and sharing my story, my struggles, my challenges. And now I work with lots of athletes and school kids and corporates. And I think that's the shift, that I was able to be that sort of senior player for a lot of guys. And Jed sort of talked about that role that he plays. I loved my nickname by the end of my career was the Todd father, because I was just that senior guy that, took people under your wing and you're looking after them and you're giving them those strategies and helping support them. And so there's a lot more support in that space with player development officers and that's all great, but often the amateur level and everyone else is kind of left to their own devices. So it's funny, isn't it? Mental skills coach is probably the last one to get picked, but if there's any crisis or adversity, he's probably the first person that you're kind of wanting to lean on. And so that's just something that I experienced in cricket and was fortunate to have a lot of support. And now I want to be that sort of person helping give back and supporting. And so I take a lot of that. So inner spin is my mental skills, but I take that into Betterman as well. And so that's the nice thing that Jed and I, we have these different skill sets. We support different groups of people from, we coach our kids' cricket teams and rugby teams and soccer teams. I work with athletes, so does Jed. We're in schools. We're also in that transition piece. We're working with corporates, sports clubs. So it's a real cross-section, and we're able to take our messages, and it's just how you relate it to those different groups of people.
Nice. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. That was, it's my way of personifying people within these kinds of spaces. And because one of the big issues that I've kind of come across while working with the Changemakers network is that all these different kaupapa, and because a lot of us work in silos. And we've already spoken about the effect of sideload mahi within networks. Oh man. So when looking forward, when you think about the next few years, what would a culture of care and accountability look like for men here in Aotearoa?
Geez, that's a big question, right? You know, you've thrown it in there. Say that again.
So looking forward, so if Betterman carries on doing the mahi that you're doing, eventually the goal is to see, and you mentioned it in your vision, Jed, to build and create and sustain a culture of care and accountability. So that's men looking and saying, I did this, and I apologize for that. And what does that look like for us here in Aotearoa? Or even if we sit down to just Christchurch and Canterbury or the South Island or something like that.
Yeah, we had a question like this last night, actually, that I was speaking at. And for us, if you look at it and you kind of extrapolate it over the coming years, we'd like to, again, really role model it well in our community in Hawesville here, but then we'd like to grow that digital community of people and followers. It's delivering our workshops into those sort of year 13 and predominantly the male-dominated schools. That's where Movember are wanting to kind of get behind us. But look, in time, we'd love to go all schools and from year 9 to year 13.
Yep.
It's then having online offerings. So we talked about online courses around that positive psychology model. And then it's our regular events. And in time, we've had people reach out and say, hey, look, could we start up something in different parts of the country? So it would be having what we're doing here and kind of, you know, role modeling it out. It's kind of like what the Changemakers is, right? You're trying to harness all of these people to play their different roles. And so that's where we are often quite time poor, and it's sort of, you know, fitting it in around the young families and other work. So again, we don't want to overpromise, underdeliver. So we want to do it well, but that's where I'd love to have that layer of care and keep being the Todd father, and Jed loves, you know, the father to the fatherless, you know. So that's where we want to play that role, but also we can't burn ourselves out, because if we do, then it's not helping anyone.
I don't know if I can answer that question, if I'm being honest. What I do know is that my aspirations is to create a movement of change within men, that there is positive change. They are open to having those conversations. It is normal. That is what a man should be and what we should be known for. So I think our goal over the next couple of years is to help create that shift or movement. I think that's all I can. And as you know, it's one pin prick at a time, right? That's all we can do. And then you build it and you build it. As is for us, like a Movember. They started with a small monthly thing and now they're huge, and they've created a movement. So we're probably aspirational without over-promising. That's our goal, is to try and create a movement where there's a shift. And from working within schools and there is a shift. The boys are different. They're more open. Like from being within that First 15 group, which is a big cross section of Aotearoa. They've got each other's backs, and they've got some challenging environments, and it's not easy. But I was pretty proud to see that they look after each other, eh?
Nice.
So I do. I'm hopeful. And I do see some positive stuff coming.
Cool. I'm going to open up the chat, and I just want to give a quick shout out to White Ribbon Men, Leo, cheer brother, all the way down there in Aranui. I'm good. Oh, okay. Oh, all of our AIs are asking all the questions. Christy, apartheid here from. Oh, not even apartheid. Okay. Apartheid from Christy. Christy Chirofa is probably one of the more intelligent people I've come across in this kaupapa. What from your fellow's point of view, what would be awesome to see following the Changemakers hui in Christchurch, North Tautahi, for the local mahi and network?
I think it's like we spoke. What do we want to see? I think it's just building that connection with that group again, and how we can work together. Like you said, the silos don't work. So how can we leverage and support each other is probably what I want out of that. And it's always good to get together with people that are trying to create change. So I think for me, it's just building that connection and then figuring out how we can support each other. Todd, I don't know what you would add to that.
No, I mean, I think that's the powerful thing. Like in sport, we love coming together with like-minded people to achieve special things. So it's no different in this space. And that's why Jed and I and Ryan, we talk about we want to be your next team, right? We want to bring people along for the ride. And shit, when you get people that are all on the same wavelength, some special things can happen. So it's trying to keep that cup filled up, right? Because that's what often our cups can be empty in the space that we play in. So how do we kind of keep helping each other and keep each other accountable, but also support one another? And that's what I'd like to, I guess, see.
Yeah, usually we have a few more partai in this part, but that's all right. So one of the kind of last things that I really wanted to talk about was our Christchurch Hui. Our Christchurch Hui is slotted to be in Ngāpuna Way at the Sports Hub on the 27th, which is a Thursday. And tomorrow I'll be sending out an email with all of the information and all the RSVP stuff that you'll need. And I just wanted to spend a bit of time talking about my experience with the one that we hosted here in Tūranganui. I sent out a report of it, but one of the more important things that I took from our wānanga was a conversation that I had with our champions, which is Matt, Jeremy, Richie, and Jace. And one of the things that they said was the vibe in the room. It was everything that they could have wanted from a kaupapa. And because a lot of that relied on, the background stuff, having all the right people in the right positions, having all the right engineering, so the right questions being asked at the right time. So, Jed, Todd, if there was a question that you could ask a group of people who are all committed to the positive change that we have spoken about, what would that question be and why? One question. It only has to be one question. So if we were to have this week and you do all the connecting and you build all of these networks and you build these relationships with these people in the room, what would be one question that you would ask? And this is based on your experience in Christchurch and Canterbury and professional sports and amateur sports, whatever kind of perspective that you want to bring to this party. What is one question that you would want to ask them and why?
For me, I think it comes back to, are you living in accordance with your values and how are you doing that?
Yeah.
Because then that role models and it shows what they're doing and it inspires and empowers. And so it kind of ties into what excites you and what's the why. It's, are you living in accordance to your values? And then I guess that's where you can kind of share your own and then you see where there are those overlaps. That's sort of what's calling out to me.
I would probably say, how you talked about the river and having the dam and blocking it off so it's cleaner river. How do we create Aotearoa that we are together, that we have a cleaner river without having to need all of us?
What kind of structure do we need to put in place upstream to clean?
Because we're having to do a lot of
the reason I like using the metaphor of a river is because I grew up in a place where we have heaps of streams. But for the majority of my childhood, we didn't have many tuna or eels in our river because to us, the eel is a sign of the health of the river. And it took us years, man, because we live around farmland. And so farmers would just take and then pump all of their rubbish back into the river. It took us years, and it took us years of graft, hard work to get our rivers back into a functionally healthy way for our eel. And then once the eel started running, it became its own ecosystem, and they cleaned it themselves because that's what they do. And so hearing your two partai is just like, yeah. So what are the kind of structures we need to put in place? What are the things we need to have? What are the relationships we need to work on and build on and all of that kind of stuff to create and build these structures that clean our rivers as we go.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
All right, I think we'll call it there. Unless there are any other partai, you have 1 minute. And I'm looking at you, Leo. I can see what's tongue, G.
I just want to say thanks to the brothers for sharing. Really inspiring, and I'm looking forward to crossing paths soon. So I'm on the east side of Christchurch, in the Aranui area, just slowly developing something for our taine, where league is a big forefront here for the Eagles. But I'm sure we're bound to cross paths soon. And thanks heaps.
Thanks, Leo.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Cool. That's us for another day. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for contributing. Big mihi to you too, and Ryan in the back there. Betterman. Too much will follow us kaupapa. And we will see you soon. Just a reminder, the email will go out tomorrow. It will have all the information about our Christchurch wānanga. Share it to your networks. If you know a person that would benefit from a hui like this, bring them. Bring them into this week. I don't really care about the contractual stuff. It's important that we build networks, and if this person fits in this network, bring them to this scope. Right, I'll close us off with a karakia. Jed, Todd, stay on the line. We'll just have a little catch up afterwards. Kia ora tata. Kia inoi tata. E te atua, whakatūwhiratia mai kia mātou, ngā huarahi o te tika, te ora, te pono, te kaha, me te māramatanga. Mā mātou koe whakamoimiti, e whakakrōrea ki tō ingoa tatu. Āmine. Kia ora tātou.
Got it.
Thanks, everyone.